Om Jnanatimandasya Jnanasnashlaka Saksha Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Chichitayamanopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swamurpagadamyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shiro Shiyuda Padakamam Shirom Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Charajatam Sakana Rakana Tam 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 Sajivan Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakana Lalita Shivshakam Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Chatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sita Devi Panam
Recording in progress.
Vakha Kalpta Visa Kripa Sindhave Visa Padnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namini Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Pachkachaya Desatarani. Today we will discuss the second half of the 10th chapter of the 5th Canto, verses 15 to 25. So we will hear now the response of King Rogana on the wise words of Chad Bharat. So I will start with reading text 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naum Chiva Nautam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Dhyamudhyayat. Nastve Zavatresu Nityam Bhakta Sevya Bhagavata Tamasloke Bhaktivaibhava Naistike. Text 15. Sukadev Goswami continued. O best of the Pandu dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, the king of the Sindhu and Savira states, Maharaj Raugana, had great faith in discussions of the absolute truth. Being thus qualified, he heard from Jad Bharat that philosophical presentation which is approved by all scriptures on a mystic yoga process and which slackens the knot in the heart. His material conception of himself as a king was thus destroyed. He immediately descended from his palanquin and fell flat on the ground with his head at the lotus feet of Jarat Bharat in such a way that he might be excused for his insulting words against the great Brahman. He then prayed as follows. We will hear his prayer. So, the linking of the soul with the body. The soul, which has nothing to do with the material body, is ahankar, or false ego. This is an illusion. This kind of philosophical discussions, if we hear it, it loses the knot in the heart. The identification, when we hear this, the identification with the body changes. That this is actually the glory of the Vedic literature. Learned persons, they understood that life was meant to conquer birth and death. They, sorry. They understood that the purpose of life was to awaken the soul's consciousness. So King Raugana, he recognized that the words from Jad Bharat were true. He recognized that Jad Bharat was a realized soul and that he didn't identify with this body. So Jad Bharat in his consciousness did not identify with the body. When he thought who he was not thinking of a body. He was seeing himself as a soul with the eternal consciousness of being a servant of Krishna. Consciousness is a symptom of the soul. So here is the first thing that the king said, that but before we go into text 16, the words of King Raugana, in the 11th canto there is an older Avaduta, self-realized person, Dattatreya. He was famous to be an Avaduta, completely independent. However, he was an impersonalist. In the 10th canto we will hear, in the 11th canto we will hear how King Yadu meets Dattatreya. Dattatreya, he lived like a python. A python, how does he get his food? He opens his mouth and just eats what Krishna sends. Dattatreya was fully satisfied. And Maharaj Yadu met him and was amazed. You are not working at all. How are you so healthy, and how did you become fat? You are healthy and satisfied, and I see that all the others are running around like mad, and they don't get this. And you are not doing anything? You are satisfied? What is the cause of this? Where did you learn this? So Dattatreya explained, I learned it from 24 gurus. So that's in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Now text 16. So the king will ask a few questions which Jad Bharat will answer. So this is, Kastvam nirgudas sarasi divyanam pibarshi sutram kanamo vatuta kasyasi kutratya iha pikasmat ksemaya nasetta sinota suklam. King Ogan said, O Brahman, you appear to be moving in this world very much covered and unknown to others. Who are you? Are you a learned Brahman, a saintly person? I see that you are wearing a sacred thread. Are you one of those exalted liberated sages such as Dattatreya and other highly advanced learned scholars? May I ask you whose disciple you are? Where do you live? Why have you come to this place? Is your mission in coming here to do good for us? Please let me know who you are. So Jad Bharat will now answer these questions in chapter 12. There he will tell us about his history. Who is and why he is there. Now text 17. Nam Vishankeshwarajavachram Na Traksa Sudana Chamasya Dandat Nachnachka Samanilavita Pastras Shanke Vishambhama Kula Vamana. That translation. My dear sir, I am not at all afraid of the thunderbolt of King Indra, nor am I afraid of the serpentine piercing trident of Lord Shiva. I do not care about the punishments of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, nor am I afraid of fire scorching sun, moon, wind, nor the weapons of Kuvera. Yet I am afraid of offending a Brahmin. I am very much afraid of this. Therefore he was begging Jad Bharat to forgive him. Can someone read, please, the purport of text 17? Thank you.
When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was instructing Rupa Goswami at the Dashasvamedha Gatha in Prayaga, he pointed out very clearly the seriousness of offending a Vaishnava. He compared the Vaishnava Aparadha to Hati Mata, a mad elephant. When a mad elephant enters a garden, it spoils all the fruits and flowers. Similarly, if one offends a Vaishnava, he spoils all his spiritual assets. Offending a Brahmana is very dangerous, and this was known to Maharaj Raghuvana. He therefore frankly admitted his fault. There are many dangerous roads fire Yamaraja's punishment. The punishment of Lord Shiva's trident and so forth. But none is considered as serious as offending a Brahmana like Jadabharata. Therefore, Maharaj Raghuvana immediately descended from his palanquin and fell flat before the lotus feet of the Brahmana Jadabharata just to be excused.
So why is it worse to offend a Brahmin, to offend a Brahmin than being struck by a thunderbolt? A thunderbolt hits on the body level and may end your life. And the reaction is finished. You go on. But offending a Vaishnava may prevent one going back to Godhead for a very long time. Therefore Srila Prabhupada established that every morning the devotees would offer obeisance to each other. Vancha kalptra vishake pasanvevsya patnam pavanvyo vaishnavyo namo namah. Text 18. Tadbhruva sangha chadavan nihuda vijnana vyayo vishasya apara. Vachamsi yoga yatitani sadhu nanak samante manasa pibetam. My dear sir, it appears that the influence of your great spiritual knowledge is hidden. Factually, you are bereft of all material association and fully absorbed in the thought of the Supreme. Consequently, you are unlimitedly advanced in spiritual knowledge. Please tell me why you are wandering around like a dullard. O great saintly person, you have spoken words approved by the yogic process, but it is not possible for us to understand what you have said. Please kindly explain it. So we go to the middle of the purport, more or less, that so sometimes it is very risky to give great philosophical instructions to ordinary people, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the benefit of the fallen souls of Kali Yuga, has given us a very nice instrument, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The general mass of people, although Sudras and less, can be purified by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Then they can understand the exalted philosophical statements of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Our Krishna conscious movement has therefore adopted the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra for the general masses. When people healthy become purified, they are instructed in the lessons of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Materialistic people like Sri, Sudra and Vichya Bandhu cannot understand words of spiritual advancement. Yet one can take the shelter of a Vaishnava, for he knows the art of enlightening even Sudras in the highly elevated subject matter spoken in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That text 19. Aham sayogesvaramatma tattva vidam muninam paramam kaumvai prashtum pavita kimiharanam tat saksat darim jnana kalavatirnam. I consider your good self the most exalted master of mystic power. You know the spiritual science perfectly well. You are the most exalted of all learned sages, and you have descended for the benefit of all human society. You have come to give spiritual knowledge, and you are a direct representative of Kapila Dev, the incarnation of God, and the plenary portion of knowledge. I am therefore asking you, O spiritual master, what is the most secure shelter in this world? So the king was on his way to Kapila's ashram, and he saw Jad Bharat as a representative of Kapila Dev, the propounder of the Sankhya Yoga. The Sankhya Yoga discriminates between the soul and the body and teaches how to separate the soul from the 24 elements. He saw Jad Bharat as non-different from Kapila Muni. Therefore he took shelter of Jad Bharat and saw him as non-different from Kapila Muni. We also accept the spiritual master as non-different from the Lord. Saksadarit Vena Samastra Sastra. So he asked, what is the most secure shelter? So now he's going to ask another question. How can I advance? How can I advance in spiritual life? Savai bhavalokanirishanachtam avyakta lingo vishatyapisvet Yogeshvaranam katimanda buddhi katam vishaksita sita jnanavanda. Is it not the fact that your good self is a direct representative of Kapila Dev, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? To examine people and see who is actually a human being and who is not, you have presented yourself to be a deaf and dumb person. Are you not moving this way upon the surface of the world? I'm very attached to family life and worldly activities, and I'm blind to spiritual knowledge. Nonetheless, I'm now present before you, and I'm seeking enlightenment from you. How can I advance in spiritual life? So this is a significant purpose. Someone can read the purpose, please.
Hare Krishna. Although Maharaj Rahugana was playing the part of a king, he had been informed by Jad Bharat that he was not a king, nor was Jad Bharat deaf and dumb. Such designations were simply coverings of the spirit soul. Everyone must come to this knowledge. as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2:13, Dehinusmin yatha dehe. Everyone is encased within the body. Since the body is never identical with the soul, the bodily activities are simply illusory. In the association of such Since the body is never identical with the soul, the bodily activity is simply illusory. In the association of such a sadhu as Jad Bharat, Maharaj Rahugana came to the awareness that his activities as a royal authority were simply illusory phenomena. He therefore agreed to receive knowledge from Jad Bharat, and that was the beginning of his perfection. Tad Vijnanartham Sagurum Eva Bhigachet. A person like Maharaj Rahugan, who was very inquisitive to know the value of life and the spiritual science, must approach a personality like Jad Bharat. Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shreyavustamam Srimad Bhagavatam 11:321. One must approach a guru like Jad Bharat, a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to inquire about the goal of human life.
So we hear this again and again, that we are not a body, and then hopefully one day it sinks in that consciousness is a symptom of us, that we are not a dull body. We all know this. We watched ourselves and others. There are bodies that change, and yet they remain the same persons. But yet, out of habit, we identify with the body. We understand that we are not a body, we are souls. We have nothing to fear from the death of the body. So Jad Bharat said that you are a king, now you are a king, and I'm your servant. But in the next life it may change. Such designations are only coverings of the spirit soul. It is not us who is hungry, it is not us who is growing old. In the beginning of the next chapter, Jad Bharat will give some tattva on how to advance in spiritual life. The truth that we tend to be unaware of the binding of the spirit soul. It will help Raghuna Maharaj to advance and will help us also to advance. In chapter 11, Jad Bharat will start to answer the questions of Raghuna Maharaj, and he will start to explain the cause of bondage of the living entities. Then in chapter 12, verses 12 to 13, he will explain the main factor of getting free from bondage. But right now, King Ogana is asking, how can I advance? Text 21. Dishtashrama kamata atmano vai brad bhaktuh Canto bhavata sanumanye yata sutadanayanat di bhavat samulaisto vyavahara marga. You have said, I am not fatigued from labor, and although the soul is different from the body, there is fatigue because of bodily labor, and it appears to be the fatigue of the soul. When you are carrying the palanquin, there is certainty labor for the soul. This is my conjecture. You have also said that external behavior exhibited between the master and the servant is not factual. But although in the phenomenal world it is not factual, the products of the phenomenal world can actually affect things. That is visible and experienced. As such, even though material activities are impermanent, they cannot be said to be untrue. So, Raghunath Maharaj questions, because what he heard from Jad Bharat, it did not tally, it did not match with his reference of life. The Vedas say that the soul has nothing to do with the body, but most religious people do not speak at all like that. They say that even if you die and go to heaven, your body will go, because they cannot distinguish with clarity between the eternal soul and the body. Raghunath Maharaj says, this is not my experience in the material world, as things can affect other things in the material world. This is experience. So Jad Bharat will answer this. But Srila Prabhupada explains it also in the purport. Someone can read the purport, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
This is a discussion on a personal Mayavada philosophy and the practical philosophy of Vaishnavas. The Mayavada philosophy explains this phenomenal world to be false, but Vaishnava philosophers do not agree. They know that the phenomenal world is a temporary manifestation, but it is not false. A dream that we see at night is certainly false, but a horrible dream certainly affects the person seeing it. The soul's fatigue is not factual, but as long as one is immersed in the illusory bodily conception, one is affected by such false dreams. When dreaming, it is not possible to avoid the actual facts, and the conditioned soul is forced to suffer due to his dream. A water pot is made of earth and is temporary. Actually, there is no water pot. There is simply earth. However, as long as the water pot can contain water, we can use it in that way. It cannot be said to be absolutely false.
Hare Krishna. Text 12. Stalyachnitapat payaso pitapas tatapatastandulagarparanthi Dehandriyavasaya sannikasat Tatsam-smiti pusasyanurodhat. King Raghunath continued. My dear sir, you have said that designations like bodily fatness and thinness are not characteristics of the soul. That is incorrect, because designations like pain and pleasure are certainly felt by the soul. You may put a pot of milk and rice within fire, and the milk and rice are automatically heated, one after another. Similarly, due to bodily pains and pleasure, the senses, mind and soul are affected. The soul cannot be completely detached from this conditioning. That is text 22. Can someone read the purport to text 22, please?
This argument put forward by Maharaj Raghunath is correct from the practical point of view, but it arises from an attachment to the bodily conception. It can be said that a person sitting in his car is certainly different from his car, but if there is damage to the car, the owner of the car, being overly attached to the car, feels pain. Actually, the damage done to the car has nothing to do with the car's proprietor, but because the proprietor has identified himself with the interest of the car, he feels pleasure and pain connected with it. This conditional state can be avoided if attachment is withdrawn from the car. Then the proprietor would not feel pleasure or pain if the car is damaged or whatever. Similarly, the soul has nothing to do with the body and the senses, but due to ignorance, he identifies himself with the body, and he feels pleasure and pain due to bodily pleasure and pain.
So devotee asked the same question to Lord Kapiladev. Is it actually possible to separate the soul from the material condition? Mother Abhiruta Malati, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj and Upana. Maharaj, I did not understand what is the question Maharaj Rahuguna asked in text 20 and 21.
21.
20 and 21. What does it mean? The external behavior exhibited in the phenomenal world is factual. I did not understand.
Is that this text? 22?
20, 20 in text 20.
20.
Yes, this.
Okay. So, is it not a fact that your good self is the direct representative of Kapila Dev, the incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead? So that is the clear. To examine people and see who is actually a human being and who is not, you have represented yourself as a deaf and a dumb person. Are you not moving this way upon the surface of the world? I'm very attached to family and worldly activities, and I'm blind to spiritual knowledge. Nonetheless, I'm present before you, and I'm seeking enlightenment from you. How can I advance in spiritual life? So, what do you don't? What are you not understanding of this text?
Sorry, Maharaj, in verse 21. In verse 21.
Oh, that's the next.
Yes, he said, you have also said that the external behavior exhibited between the master and the servant is not factual. But although in the phenomenal world it is not factual, the products of the phenomenal world can actually affect things.
Yeah.
What is the question?
So it says because King Shad Bharat said before that you think yourself a king. That
Yes.
And you see yourself as you see myself as your servant. And he said that's not factual because in the next life the roles may be reversed. And Jad Bharat speaks about of experience because 2 lives before he was the king. So it changes in the next life that he doesn't remain a king. That and he says, yeah. So therefore, Jad Bharat said it's not factual. But he says the products of the phenomenal world can actually affect things. King Arjuna says, if I order to kill you, you will be killed. You will be affected. But it's the body who is affected, not the soul. That he did not yet understand. And that will be clarified later. That so it's not in his. This is not in his experience. He didn't realize he's a soul, different from the body. He did not have that experience. So and therefore he's doubting that. So therefore he is asking this question. He's objecting that. But in the previous verse he said, yes, I don't have spiritual knowledge and I can't understand it. And that's the proof that he cannot understand it. But that will be all clarified in the 11th and the 12th chapter. There it will be answered. Advaita Krishna Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So in this question, Maharaj Rahugana, text 22, right?
22 moment.
Yeah.
Back to 22. Yeah.
You just read it, right?
Yeah, the purport, yeah.
Yeah, So what Maharaj Raghuna is implying is that the soul gets affected. The soul gets affected just like the heat affects the pot affects the milk affects the rice, and the rice gets cooked. So means that the Atma gets affected. Is that what he's implying?
That is what he's saying, yeah.
Okay.
That is what he's saying. But it's not true that the soul is affected. Our minds are affected.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah, I was confused in a bit because then I looked back and I thought, well, this is Maharaj Rahugana speaking, not Jad Bharat. Because Jad Bharat had said that it'd be catastrophic. Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
But in the case of Jad Bharat, he was able to withdraw his consciousness from matter and focus on what we really are. That's so from the point of reality, King Rahugana's points are not true, and that will be pointed out in the next chapters.
But it's a really nice example, the way the example of the heat on the pot and the pot milk and the rice. It's a very nice example because layers and layers of our covering of the Atma.
Yeah, he has philosophical thoughts for sure. That you put a pot of milk and rice within the fire, and they start to boil and affect each other. So how can the soul not be affected? But no, it's just an interaction between the mind, the body, the intelligence, material intelligence, between the subtle and the gross body. If something happens with the gross body, the subtle body becomes affected. And if the subtle body creates the gross body. So they are affecting each other. But the soul has nothing to do with it. That we will see later. Thank you. Text 23. Sasta bhikopta nirpati prachanam yat kinkarovai napi nasti pishtam svadharmanaratanamasyutasya yatin hamano vihat yagokam. My dear sir, you have said that the relationship between the king and the subject, or between the master and the servant, are not eternal. But although such relationships are temporary, when a person takes the position of a king, his duty is to rule the citizens and punish those who are disobedient to the laws. By punishing them, he teaches the citizens to obey to the laws of the state. Again, you have said that punishing a person who is deaf and dumb is like chewing the chewed or grinding the pulp. That is to say, there is no benefit in it. However, if one is engaged in his occupational duty as ordered by the Supreme Lord, his sinful activities are certainly diminished. Therefore, if one is engaged in his occupational duty by force, he benefits because he can vanquish all his sinful activities in that way. So we see that King Rahugana here has invested his entire life in being a king. So he becomes very personal here. He says, I am following the orders of the Lord and this purifies me, so how can it be illusory? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada brings it to a different level. Someone can read the purport?
The argument offered by Maharaj Rahuguna is certainly very effective. In his Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Tasmat kenapi upayena mana Krishna niveshayet. Somehow or other, one should engage in Krishna consciousness. Actually, every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna, but due to forgetfulness, a living entity engages himself as an eternal servant of Maya. As long as one is engaged in Maya's service, he cannot be happy. Our Krishna consciousness movement aims at engaging people in Lord Krishna's service that will help them become freed from all material contamination and sinful activity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, verse 10. Vitaraga bhai krodha. By becoming detached from material activities, we will be freed from fear and anger. By austerity, one becomes purified and eligible to return home back to Godhead. The duty of king is to rule his citizens in such a way that they become Krishna conscious. This will be very beneficial for everyone. Unfortunately, the king or president engages a people in sense gratification instead of Lord service, and such activities are certainly not beneficial for anyone. King Rahuguna tried to engage Jada Bharat in carrying palanquin, which is a form of sense gratification for a king. However, if one is engaged with the palanquin carrier in the Lord service, this will is certainly beneficial. That is certainly beneficial. In this godless civilization, if a president engages people somehow or other in devotional service or to the awakening of Krishna consciousness, he will render the best service to the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. So, the essence of this purpose is Vitaragabhakada Manmayabhava. Nam, ja, Vitaragabhakada Manmayabhava Upashrita. Bhavogana Tapsa Buddhamat Bhavam Agata. Great sages in the past have become free from attachment, fear, and anger, and became purified by through transcendental knowledge, and then developed love for me. That's so. It's the duty of a king to facilitate that, so that they can become Krishna conscious, that that they become purified by their activities. So that's the level where Srila Prabhupada brings us. That Vitaragya Koda Manmaya Mamupashrita Bhovakana Tapasa Putmat Bhavan Agata. Bhagavad Gita 4:10 2024. Tame Bhavam Naradeva Bhimana Madena Tuchi Krita Sattamasya Krishista Samartha Bandhu Yata Tarisat Avadyanamam. When whatever you have spoken appears to me contradictory, O best friend of the distressed, I have committed a great offense by insulting you. I was puffed up with false prestige due to possessing the body of a king. For this I have certainly become an offender. Therefore I pray that you kindly glance at me with your causeless mercy. If you do so, I can be relieved from the sinful activities brought about by insulting you. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the mad elephant offense. We discussed it already, text 25, the last text. Navikriya vishvasarit sakasya samyena vita bimatastavapi mat vimanat svakrita matrin nangsyat yadurat apisunapani. O my dear Lord, you are the friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the friend of all living entities. You are therefore equal to everyone, and you are free from the bodily conception. Although I have committed an offense by insulting you, I know that there is no loss or gain for due to my insult. You are fixing your determination whether I have committed an offense. Because of this, even though I may be as strong as Lord Shiva, I shall be vanquished without delay due to my offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. The purport Srila Prabhupada speaks about this Vaishnava apparat. To end, we will read I will read the purport of 24 and 25 on this Vaishnava apparat. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that by offending a Vaishnava, one finishes all his spiritual activities. Offending a Vaishnava is considered a mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can destroy an entire garden which has been developed with great labor. When we attain the topmost platform of devotional service, but somehow or other, if he offends a Vaishnava, the whole structure collapses. Unconsciously, King Raugana offended Jat Bharat, but due to his good sense, he asked to be excused. So this is the process by which one can be relieved from a Vaishnava apparat. Krishna always very simple. It's very simple and by nature merciful. When one commits an offense at the feet of a Vaishnava, one must immediately apologize to such a personality so that his spiritual advancement may not be hampered. Maharaj Raghuna was very intelligent and conscious of the inauspicious effect arising from insulting a Vaishnava. He was therefore very anxious to be excused by Jat Bharat. Following in the footsteps of Maharaj Raghuna, everyone should be cautious not to commit an offense to the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur in the Chaitanya Bhagavat says, Sulapani samayadi bhakta nindakare Bhagavata pramana tatapi shishramari Ena Vaishnavera ninde sarvahyahai Ye janare adapata sarvashastrakai. Even if one is as strong as Lord Shiva, who carries a trident in his hand, one will nonetheless fall down from his spiritual position if he tries to insult a Vaishnava. This is the verdict of Vedic scriptures. He also says, this in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya 22. Vaishnava ninda karibeke yagana tara rakshasa martya naika kona jana. Sulapani sama yadi Vaishnava ninde tatapi anasa chayaka hesastavinde. Iha namaniya yesu jana nindakare Chanme chame se papishta deva dose mare. When who blasphemes a Vaishnava cannot be protected by anyone, even if a person is as strong as Lord Shiva. If he blasphemes a Vaishnava is sure to be destroyed. This is the verdict of all Shastras. If one does not care for the verdict of the Shastras and dares blaspheme a Vaishnava, he suffers life after life because of this. This is the Hati Mata offense, the mad elephant's offense. When an elephant is mad, he destroys the complete garden. And if you offend a Vaishnava, the verdict of the Shastras is one is sure to be destroyed. Very careful with it. This ends the Bhaktivaibhava powers of the 5th Canto, 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled The Discussion Between Jat Bharat and Maharaj Raghuna. So, any question, please? Comments? Yeah, Mother Prema Manjari, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for these nice explanations. I have a question regarding committing offense to the Vaishnava. If one commits, like unconsciously, not intentionally, if the offense happens, what is the best thing to do in this situation?
Yeah, it depends. It depends really on the situation. that because sometimes we may think we commit an offense, but it's not the case. Sometimes the person may feel offended, but you did not commit an offense. So it's quite complex. That's the first thing. One must know the situation. That if we blaspheme a Vaishnava, it means a wrong attitude within the heart. So it's not, but if one, the example of course, we will hear in the 9th canto, that Durvas Muni will offend Maharaj Ambarish. And he will be fleeing all over the universe, that trying to find shelter, even with Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma. But they say both say, nothing we can do for you. We have offended the Vaishnava. He even goes to Vaikuntha and sees Lord Narayan. And Lord Narayan explains him. He speaks this verse to show how dear the Vaishnavas are to the Lord. Sadhavoidayam mayam sadhanam hridayam tvam matanyatena janti nam tebhyamanagapi. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I'm always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. So that's the connection with the pure devotee. So the only solution for Durvasa Muni was go to this Vaishnava and beg forgiveness. And mostly the Vaishnava will say, embrace you and say you did not commit any offense. Yeah, what can we do?
Okay, thank you. May I ask another question? You mentioned that it is complex situation and that it depends whether one has committed offense or not. So, for example, if one devotee says something and another devotee gets very disturbed and offended, how do we discriminate whether this was an offense or not?
The main point is, in your heart, did you feel envy? Did you feel feelings that you wanted this Vaishnava to bring down or teach a lesson? That's not so good. So what is in the heart? And if the person feels offended, you can tell him, I'm sorry, I didn't want to offend you, and you can try to explain that. But if you have that, if you feel that in the heart, better to ask for forgiveness. It is always the safest path, to ask for forgiveness, even in the case you are unsure. So yes, that is. Therefore, my Guru Maharaj explains that in the Vaishnava etiquette course, that you should be very careful with correcting someone else. That don't correct someone who does not want to be corrected by you. That's going on. Don't correct someone if you feel envy towards that person. Don't correct another devotee if he is senior to you. So there are many conditions there. This Vaishnava etiquette is helpful to avoid offenses. That we have the tendency many times to control things, but better many times not to do. That unless we are in a position of authority, and it's our duty. But yeah. Anyway, it's complex, like I said. Thank you, Mother.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mother Lila Madhuri, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you. Maharaj, I also have two questions. One question is, what kind of sufferings that person will undergo life after life because of blaspheming a Vaishnava?
Well, one blasphemes a Vaishnava and one does not ask forgiveness or to be offended, then it will take some time to overcome it. The immediate result will be you are chanting, but there is no taste in the chanting. Krishna takes your taste away. But still, if you continue chanting, after a long, long time, you will be able to overcome it by constant chanting. But better to ask forgiveness. That, yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah,
Maharaj, one more question.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah.
There's one more question. What is the role of the soul what is the role of my soul when I'm completely engaged in materialistic activities, especially sinful activities?
Yeah, the action of the soul is desiring, being attached to something. If you are attached to material enjoyment, that's the soul who is attached. You are attached to soul. And that's activity of the soul. That's our engagement as the soul. But we have to change our attachment and see everything we do as belonging to Krishna and to be used in his servant and see yourself as a servant of Krishna and not be attached to anything. Be attached to the service of Krishna. That's what we have to change. That is the role of the soul, or the how the soul is involved in material activities. Desire to exploit Krishna's world, but it belongs to him and is for his enjoyment. It's not for us. That's the essence. Does that help?
I couldn't get that. Desires of enjoying something. That is the role of my soul. Am I correct, Maharaj?
The role of the soul is to be attached. Attachment or desire. That's how that's how the soul is involved in all these things.
In my actions.
Yeah, it begins with desire, and that desire comes from the soul. And the desire to exploit things in this world for the enjoyment of the body, that comes from the soul, and that's a problem. And we must change our
So
desire.
when I purify my desire.
Purify the desire first by knowing that everything belongs to Krishna and is for his enjoyment, and I as a soul, I'm the servant of Krishna. I'm going to help Krishna to enjoy that, and then you come on the spiritual platform. That is the activity of the soul. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So, then we have Mother Goloka Fashini. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, Mataji's question was like, Maharaj, these desires are of soul or are of the mind?
Yeah, desires come from different levels. Just a moment. So desires come from different sources. The first source, I would say, is explained in Bhagavad Gita 270. 270 Bhagavad Gita. Apoyamanam achala pravishtam samutanapi pravishanti sarve. Tavat kamayam pravishanti sarve sasampi napnoti nakami kami. So this verse explains like rivers are going to the ocean. The ocean is not disturbed by it. And in the same way, so many desires entering into our hearts, into our minds. And a self-realized person is not disturbed by it because he does not want to satisfy these desires. So where do these desires come from that pop up into the mind? These are desires the soul had in his previous lives. Previous lives. It's in the subconsciousness of the subtle body. And these were material desires. Material desires mean dus purenan alenacha. You never can satisfy these material desires. It's not possible. So we tried in our previous life to fulfill these desires. And Krishna as Paramatma knows that. We forgot our desires from previous life, but Paramatma does not. And he brings these desires in our mind, not all at once. And it pops up. And the devotee, he sees that desire and says, oh, that's a material desire. I'm not interested. He observes the mind and says, no, I don't want this desire. I know, if he feels this attachment still, but no, I want to give it up. I don't want to follow this, because this is against Krishna's instruction. It's selfish. So that's one source of desires. It comes from our previous lives and Paramatma gives it to us. The materialist thinks when the desire comes up, I'm the mind, so that's my desire. Let's try again. And he goes again in the same problems. But that's one source of desire. Another source of desire is from the soul itself. And that's what we are doing in Krishna consciousness. Cultivate new desires, desires to serve Krishna. That without any profit, just out of love. That's spiritual desires. It's what we want to cultivate. Desires from the soul. And the third kind of desires are desires that come into our mind due to the influence of the environment. If you are in an environment where they drink all alcohol and speak about the opposite sex and so on, you become influenced by it. It enters your heart. So we have to be very careful. So these are three sources of desires. And if we become advanced, we know what is what. Does that help, Mother Goloka-Vashini?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you very much. Maharaj, one more question, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Like, Maharaj, due to polluted consciousness, like if a devotee commits offense in mind, like fault finding or not able to understand the activities of a Vaishnava, so what are the consequences of these mental offenses? And when I joined ISKCON, I realize I have done many offenses. So, what are the ways to rectify, or like, will I suffer? Or Maharaj, please guide. Like, what are the consequences?
So, what you should do is repent. Honestly, ask forgiveness. For forgiveness to Krishna And also, yeah, of course, maybe difficult due to the passing of time that we cannot ask everyone to forgive, but it is important to repent and come to the point, I will not do this again. So that is certainly something you can do. That comes from the first canto. There this is explained, where Maharaj Pariksit offended Samika Rishi, and when he was on the way to the palace, he realized I committed the offense, and he prayed to Krishna, let reaction come, and let it come to me alone, not to my family, that I deserve it. So he was repenting. So that's important. That is a change of heart, and Krishna wants to see that. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. And Maharaj, what about the mental offenses? What are the consequences?
In Kali Yuga, these mental offenses are not counted, no reactions, but it is a sign of an impure heart, and we must give that up. Yeah. That's the advantage of Kali Yuga. In previous yugas, that's different. Their mental offenses are counted, but in Kali Yuga, not. Otherwise, we will go immediately all to hell. Because okay, thank you very much. So we will end here. And thank you. It was nice to be with you. I think the next speaker will go to these instructions of Jad Bharat, which are very valuable. Because the doubts that King Rogana expressed, that are also our doubts mostly, and we will hear the explanation of Jad Bharat, which will help us to advance in spiritual life just by hearing. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Bol.
I think we don't have classes, Maharaj, is that right? For the next 1 week. We don't have any class for the next 1 week.
Yeah, I don't know the schedule. I just followed my schedule. I had to do till chapter 10. And that.
Yeah. No, I'm just looking at the schedule because of the Rupa Goswami festival.
Yeah.
The next class is September 1st.
September 1st. I understand, yeah. Rupa Goswami festival. Very nice. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Bol.
Recording stopped.